I love Fear and Hunger. It's one of the best RPG series I have ever played, and it's the most brutal. It has an incredible story, a great cast, and some of the most interesting game mechanics I have ever seen. However, it is fairly unapproachable, and from the outside looking in, it's incredibly difficult. But in reality, it's not. Sure, you're gonna die over and over and over and over and over and over and over, but hey, at least you die a little slower next time. Quick warning though, these games aren't for everyone. They touch on some very sensitive topics, so viewer discretion is advised. But this game stuck with me in a way that games rarely do. It's the kind of brain itch that has you wanting to look up strategies at work instead of doing your actual job. And it became a bit of a fixation for me. So let me introduce you to the wonderful horrors of this game by telling you about my first experience with Fear and Hunger 2. The world of Fear and Hunger is cruel and oppressive. It does not care about its characters, and it certainly doesn't care about you, the player. It shows this through its masterfully crafted, unsettling environments and its panic-inducing soundtrack. I actually had to have a friend join me at the beginning of my playthrough just to ease me into it.
Hey, what's up?
The game is trying to tell you one thing throughout the entirety of it. This is a survival game, and you will not be surviving. The original Fear and Hunger takes place in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. Termina actually moves us away from those dungeons to Prehevel, a decrepit doom town that's been taken over by an event called the Festival of Termina. Many years have passed since the first game, so prior knowledge isn't really required. There are some reoccurring characters which I'll point out as they come, but I'll keep the lore light, as this is just my first experience with the game. We start the game as one of 14 passengers, 8 of which are playable, on a train to Prehevel, unwittingly signing themselves up for the Festival of Termina, a battle royale-esque event enforced by the trickster moon god Rhea. Out of all the 8 playable characters, I had no idea which one I wanted to be. All of them have their own unique and cool abilities and skills, so I did the only smart thing I could do. I let chat choose for me. I won't be going into every single character, just the ones that I feel are most important. We have Abella, the mechanic who has the ability to create weapons from items and junk you can find lying all over the place. There's Levy, the heroin addict, Olivia, the one with movement issues, and then there's the one that I picked, Jojo. Well, his name isn't actually Jojo, it's just that Marco looks a lot like a Jojo, doesn't he? He has one of the best starts in the game if you're a new player. His unarmed attacks hit twice, which in the early game is very strong, but guess he didn't use that for most of his playthrough. Yeah, this guy. When I named Marco, I found that there's a little quirk that this game has. To confirm an action, you need to press Z in every single menu, but specifically in the naming menu, you can use the entire keyboard to type out your name. So now, I am Marcos, and I didn't notice this for the longest time. Way longer than I'm willing to admit. Then we choose our difficulty, and we have 3 options. I played on the Fear and Hunger difficulty, which is the intended difficulty, but there are 2 others. Easy, which has more items, less enemies, and less traps, and some bosses don't have their phase 2. And then there's Masochist mode, which definitely lives up to the name. You start on the final night, meaning no allies, there's no saving, with some exceptions, and just like in real life, if you're outside for more than like 68 seconds, the moon smites you for touching grass. With all that decided, we can finally start the game. Our game starts with Marcos on a train into Prehevel, where we are given some backstory which allows us to influence Marco's decisions and grants us abilities and items depending on what we pick. Now you can get these skills later on in the game, so there's no real reason to stress over anything. We find out Marco has a sister, he was reluctantly part of the mob as a boxer, and he ended up murdering a guy in the ring, as well as a high-ranking mob member who his sister was dating. Which brings us to where he is now, on a train, fleeing the mob, attempting to meet up with his sister who was in a different country at the time. We then fall asleep and wake up in what looks like the same train, but all the other passengers are gone. We follow a strange looking girl and end up in an area that really has no business being on a train. And then we meet this lovely gentleman and are thrown into the first taste of combat. First thing you may notice is, well, his jump. Thankfully there is a sense mod, otherwise I don't think I'd be able to make this video. So let's just get rid of that. While this is technically the combat tutorial, there is a pamphlet you can find later on, and I'll just tell you about it right now. Fear and Hunger's combat is very unique. Enemies have multiple parts that can be targeted and destroyed, and destroying them changes the way that they fight. To win, you just need to destroy the body or the head. but they're not just gonna let you do that. It's always best to remove their weapons and then their ability to move before you kill them. But bear in mind, what you can do to them, they can do to you, and losing an arm is run ending. So it's always best to play safe. It seems like a simple system, but it does require some learning, and when you figure it out, it is so satisfying. Some enemies will have a special attack that uses a different mechanic. This is known as coin flips, which is exactly what it sounds like. You flip a coin and have a 50-50 chance of dodging the attack or just dying. You can cheat this though. If you have more than one coin, you can spend it to flip 2 coins, putting the odds in your favor. Or maybe not. The same system is used for unlocking chests outside of combat too. You flip a coin, guess right, get loot. However, in my experience, the coin always lands on what I didn't choose. These coins are so useful, so much so that I ended up hoarding them until I really needed them. Anyway, you got all that? Great, but don't worry about losing this fight or not, it's just a tutorial, so the game won't punish you too badly. It'll just take your legs. Escaping past that freak, we are transported to the Hall of the Gods before being pulled into the Moon Tower to meet Perkele, who tells us that everyone on the train will now be taking part in the Festival of Termina, and only one of them can win. He tells us to come back to the tower when all is done, and then we wake up back on the train, as if nothing had happened. Before we leave the train, there's something really important you need to know about Fear and Hunger's loot system. It's all random. Every time you load up a save, the loot is reset, so each run is going to be unique, and you probably won't find the same item in the same area. Anyway, we leave the train, making sure to pick up that tutorial pamphlet I mentioned, and then we meet our future allies and problems. Everyone else had the exact same dream. No one knows if it was real, but we all know that tower is important. And then we begin. We have a choice here. We can either wander around, or we can do as Perkele said and just kill everyone. I decided that I wanted to figure out what was going on and make my way to the tower. So I did what anyone would do in my place and wandered around aimlessly until I died. Again and again. And surprisingly, again. But in a different way. Eventually, I made my way to a manor near the slums, where another passenger named Henrik is trying to find some food for everyone, but he seems to be having some trouble, and not just with finding the food. I decide it's probably best to help him and explore the manor a bit. I find a priest, die, rush back to the manor, and do it all over again until I find a key to the storeroom. This seems to help Henrik with his issues, and I think this is the only time the game ever does this. By helping Henrik, I have unwittingly killed another passenger. With Henrik saved, we now have access to a cook who will give us unlimited food, which brings me to another mechanic of Fear and Hunger, your food and your mind, or your fear and your hunger. Hunger is pretty self-explanatory. If you're hungry, you do less damage, and if you have no food, you're dead. Mind is how your character casts spells, and it shows how afraid you are. It goes down over time and is affected by your character's fear, and there's a lot of fears in the game. And no, you don't need to pay attention to them. I know I didn't. You can replenish your mind. You just need to drink alcohol? Well, Miro is finished, so that checks out. Exploring some more, I find this open door, and eventually make my way to the city of Prehevel. There is so much to see here. I find a church, a dock with this very friendly army dude, and this lovely fellow named Pocket Cat who says he'll give me special items for head. Oh wait, no, that's the head of the other passengers. Let's leave him alone. I then find these locals who want to show me their cool new bench grinder, and then this weird thing. And then I find the only safe place in the whole of Prehevel, which has a place for me to finally save. Saving works differently in this game, and yes, there's gonna be a paragraph where I explain how saving works, calm down. This game has a day-night cycle, so when you sleep, you progress the day, and there's only 3 sections within each day: morning, afternoon, and evening. And since you only have like 3 days to live, you only get 9 saves total this way. You could use this special book, which gives you only 1 save at a time, or you could call upon the god of fear and hunger. Both good options. Both don't progress the day. However, progressing the day is useful, as the day goes on, more events occur in the city, and you also get the chance to learn new skills using the soul stones. How do you get the soul stones? Well, by sacrificing the heads of all those you've killed to the gods, of course. You've been cutting off their heads, right? With all this in mind, saving becomes a bit of a stressful decision, doesn't it? Now that I'm free to make more mistakes, I kindly ask the locals to stop bothering me so much. And hey, look, they left me a bench grinder. But unfortunately, it's broken right now, so it's pretty useless. I then stumbled upon Levy not far from the safe zone, and once I had enabled his bad habits, I finally had an ally in my party. Levy is my one and only friend, so I ran right back to the bar and saved again. Things kinda stagnated a bit after this. I won't lie, I spent the next 5 hours of my session making absolutely no progress. Well, not physical progress. I did learn a lot, so let me catch you up. I learned of multiple locations to check out, but most importantly, there's an evil clown going around hunting and murdering people from the train. There are 6 main locations for us to check out. 3 hold a special item called an effigy, which will help us progress deeper into the city, and the other 3 are bunkers that lead to something called a telectronoscope. Not sure what it is, but it's used for something called the logic, so they're getting turned on. One of these is in a forest near the safe zone, a forest filled with instant death traps. Fun. The locations that hold the effigies are a moldy apartment building, an orphanage, and a church. They're all guarded by very special things. Hell itself, ghost kids and a priest, and Cthulhu squid creatures. All of the telectronoscopes are located in bunkers around the map, namely in the forest, near the slums from the beginning of the game, and in a cave underneath the church. They are also guarded by some kind of monster. The forest has a man who loved his horse a bit too much, as well as the clown's daughter. The bunker in the slums is guarded by my mistake, and the last one is guarded by a dog, a very, very big dog. To make getting through these places easier on myself, I need a full team. And to get a full team, I need to take care of my clown-shaped problem, which is surprisingly easy to deal with. Just throw glass in his eyes. I then stumble upon my next member, a girl called Marina, and after a quick talk and a walk down to the church, she joins my party. Chat then tells me there's a way I can get a 4th member already. They're just back at the train, so taking all the help I can get, I rush on over. On my way back, I run into another passenger called Tanaka, a normal businessman who can die in so many ways depending on how you play. Sadly, he's not a playable character yet, so we can't recruit him. Mirror, please, I beg you. But he has found a wheelchair for Olivia. We escort him back to the train, give the wheelchair to Olivia, and now she's a recruitable character. Welcome to the team. Back at the church, there is an issue stopping us from getting to the effigy. Big gate. Now, there are 2 ways around this. I could fight through the sewers, fight the big dog, walk past the bunker, find a hole in the wall, and take the elevator up just behind the gate. Or I could just... Now that I'm in the basement, it's time to find that effigy. But instead I find myself in this strange new realm and stumble upon another passenger, a girl named Samiri. She seems to be having a rough time of it, and when I try to talk to her... What the fuck? This is moon scorching, and it can happen to any one of us if we spend too long in the city. They count as mini boss fights, and if you want to get more skills, you do have to fight them. The fight isn't too hard and doesn't take too long. We come out of it practically unscathed, except for Olivia. She just lost a leg. I'm sure she won't mind though. Leaving that world behind, I deal with the rest of the Cthulhu monsters and eventually find the first effigy. With that in hand, I run right back to the bar and save. With the first effigy in hand, I wanted to check out one of the bunkers next, the closest one to me being the one in the forest. So after making my way there with little to no trouble, I encountered the first guard. This thing is a very hard fight, and while I have beaten it before with very few casualties, it's much easier just to run past it, and that's what I recommend you do. There's not really much inside the bunker. We just need to turn on the power and deal with the clown's daughter. It's another clown called Stitches who glass to the eyes. Near the end of the area, we encounter Osa, another passenger from the train, and he's gravely wounded, so we help him out a bit. Here, I could have recruited him, but I didn't because I had a full party and I didn't know I could do that. He was right next to the telectronoscope though, so let's turn that on while we're here. Then I decided to go back to the church, specifically the bunker underneath it, the one guarded by the big dog. This next fight was going to be very difficult since Moonless is a bunch of very high damaging glass to the eyes. With Moonless taken care of, I was able to freely explore the bunker. There's no one in this one, just an enemy that was disguised as Tanaka. I don't know why they would do that. Anyway, that's another telectronoscope turned on. And now I'm onto the final bunker. Or, well, maybe it's the first? Since this is next to the beginning town, I reckon I was meant to stumble upon this much earlier. The only thing inside this bunker was another moon-scorched Chalkner, which could have been a hard fight if I'd come here when I was meant to, maybe. After the fight, I absorb its soul, and now I have the ability to make weapons. Gee, I wonder who that was. Anyway, the final scope is nearby, and now all of those are active, for better or for worse. Next up is the final two effigies, the first of which is located in the mold apartment. A surprisingly nice place with not many enemies. Just one puzzle to solve about how a serial killer murdered all of his neighbors, which took a lot longer than I am ready to admit. After figuring that puzzle out and opening the door, we ended up in the alternate realm, much like the one where we found Samiri. There is so much danger here, but it's got a really nice soundtrack to go with it. Near the effigy, there's another moon scorched. This one is called Judgment, and it seems our favorite businessman has transformed as well. After the relatively quick fight, the game decided that I need to see an alternate universe, as it shows the corpse of Marco's moon scorched form, since if I wasn't playing as Marco, he would be here instead of Tanaka. Chat said this was a bug, but I think the game was just messing with me. With the effigy in hand, we head over to the last location, the orphanage. It's exactly what you expect from an orphanage, to be honest. It's got classrooms, bedrooms for the children, a gallows in the courtyard, a nice little supply shed, torture basement, naked priest. It's a miserable place, and thankfully we don't need to be here long. Just need to go through the portal in the supply shed and we're taken to the trenches in a war zone. Jesus, these kids must have had it rough. This area is pretty short, so we run through and grab the final effigy, but before we leave, there is an optional boss in the form of Father Hugo, and I was curious about his loot. So I head to his office, shoot him a bit, which he didn't seem to care about, and start the fight. Sadly, after taking some damage, he burns everything in the room, including my party and his clothes. So no loot for us. You can kill him before he does this, but I was just never able to. With all the effigies in hand, there's only one place left to go, back to church, where we place all the effigies on their altars and open up a second basement. Running past every creature in there, I find my way to a cathedral and accidentally encounter a boss without saving. Now, usually this would be really scary, but Rancid here doesn't really put up much of a fight, and one missing arm later, he flees like a little bitch and gives me a new weapon. After securing a quick little shortcut, you know, just in case, running towards the tower, I encountered the Kaiser for the very first time, who seems to be having a little dispute with one of his soldiers. After patching the wounded man up, I take him back to the train where he can recover, and then turn my attention right back to the moon tower. A giant door stands in our way, stopping us from entering, and when you interact with it, the game tells you, do not touch that door. And just between you and me, don't touch that door. After deciding that I don't want to murder anyone anymore, I explore a bit and find another safe room to save in. The rest of the upper city doesn't really have much else in it, except for this museum having a nice party, frozen in time, completely unaware of the horrors surrounding them. There are a few good items here that you could relocate into your pockets. And after a little time puzzle, I discovered this hole with a really long ladder in it. This all led me to discover a giant hidden vault, and since I had activated all of the telectronoscopes, it was open for me. So I ventured inside, the doors closed behind me, and I was trapped. The vault has the exact same layout as the bunkers we were in before. The deeper we go, the more of the Kaiser's soldiers we find. And near the end, we come across the platoon and its commander, this weird dominatrix demon and its flesh tank. Yeah, that checks out. This fight can be really hard. You can either take out the commander and let the tank go on a rampage, dealing massive damage and having access to a very powerful attack you can only dodge with a coin flip, or you can leave her alone, giving her access to another really powerful attack that can't be guarded. It really is a damned if you do and damned if you do type of situation. After surviving that fight, we were brought in front of the Kaiser, who thanks us for our efforts in creating the logic, a new god, which is almost ready to be born, and he really doesn't want us interfering in it. You can talk to the Kaiser about his motives here. He's actually one of the old party members from the first game, a guy called Lagarde. He ascended to godhood and is now trying to unite humanity after failing to do so in the past. To do this, he is trying to make a new god which he will control and use for his own plans. The fight is a really tough one. You can attack multiple times per turn and do a lot of damage, which can easily decapitate you if you're unlucky. Of course, through perseverance, a bit of luck, and a close call or two, I'm able to defeat the Kaiser on my first try and move on to the final room. We are immediately met with another boss fight against the new god, the logic. This is a boss fight which requires you to survive a large amount of damage and be able to deal a large amount of damage. Since she has a move that activates 6 cylinders around her, and if they aren't destroyed by the next turn, she'll do even more damage. I'm not gonna lie, she took me a few tries before I finally beat her. Funny thing is though, I never actually fully beat her. The thing is, the logic is meant to have 2 phases, but if you do just enough damage before her first phase ends, you just win. I have since gone back to try and get the second phase, but every time I do it, I just keep killing her way too fast. At the end of the fight, logic opens up and absorbs us into her, merging us into her conscience of consensus, and the game ends. But that's not where I stopped. There are more endings in this game, 3 to be specific. The other 2 require you to be the last contestant alive. However, for one of them, ending C, you need to kill everybody by day 2. And since I can't do that right now, let's go get ending B. So I went back to the train and took a well-needed nap until the night of... At this point, we are alone. Everyone except us has been moon scorched, so I create one of the best weapons in the game from the useless, broken bench grinder we got, and I go about taking care of each and every single moon scorched, including our old friends, Olivia, Marina, and even Levy. And then there is only me at the door to the tower. Inside the tower is an elevator that takes us all the way up to where we were in the dream at the very beginning, in front of Percolate. And he reveals this festival was never for Rhea, as the moon god is long dead, and Percolate has been using the remnants of his power to cause the festival of Termina to recruit people to the cult of Sulfur. Sulfur being Percolate's true master. However, since we didn't kill everybody by day 2, we weren't fast enough, and so we too must die. Percolate isn't actually that hard of a fight. The bench grinder makes quick work of him. If I had been relying on magic, he would have killed me easily. And after striking down this last boss, we're surprisingly not finished yet, as Rhea isn't as dead as we thought. He takes notice of us getting closer and closer to the moon tower for a fight, and when he's close enough, my game crashes. I guess Rhea is much stronger than Percolate thought. Right, let's do all of that all over again, I guess. Okay, now we fight Rhea, which is a very difficult fight. After all the moon scorched and Percolate, I barely had enough healing to keep me going. And perhaps worst of all, I'd run out of items to keep my mind full. And when my mind reaches 0, Rhea will be able to do an insta-kill attack. But luckily, it's a coin flip attack, heads or tails. And unbeknownst to Rhea, I've been stocking up. And with that, Rhea is defeated. The final night ends and we watch the sun rise on the 4th day. We survived the festival. This game is truly a unique experience. Since this run, I have gone back to play the game multiple times to save and kill everybody. Each run still felt fresh and new, even though I'd already played the game before. This brutal, strange, disturbing, and yet oddly beautiful world is something I look for in video games. And if it's something that y'all would like, I highly recommend checking it out. There's definitely something that I've missed. The game is still being updated, and the final update should be out soon. Miro, please. And the final game in this series is currently being worked on. I cannot wait to see where the series goes from here. Hey everybody, I'm trying something new here, so bear with me. I wanted to see if I could make a video like this and if this new way of script writing was any good. Thank you for all the support. I only ever expect my videos to get a handful of views, and reading all these nice comments makes me really want to make more. I want to try and get a new video out every 2 months or so. So thank you again. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be back to the usual Pokemon videos in the next one.